So I wanted to say welcome and thank you all for being here and for attending the revolutionary power of self-awareness. And everyone who's able to has responded to the questions that I posted in Poly. And we're going to use that as an icebreaker in just a couple minutes. But first, I wanted to kind of go over who I am and what I do and kind of a little bit about what we'll be talking about this evening. And my slides are not advancing. There we go. All right, so like I said, this is the revolutionary power of self-awareness, and we are going to be talking about self-awareness and how you can take some practical steps to becoming more self-aware and what that means for you. What are the benefits of self-awareness, and what does self-awareness really mean for us and our growth in the long run? And as I mentioned, I am Eric Alpin. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a growth and self-transformation coach. I own Stratiform Solutions, which is a coaching and consulting business where we really focus on what we need to uncover in order to move into a more empowered, effective, and growth-minded future. So I do one-on-one coaching. I do team and group coaching, workshops and webinars, which is something that you're attending tonight, and also speaking engagements. And just a heads up that you will be getting a recording of this, of our conversation tonight, in case you wanted to replay anything or kind of re-listen to it. And also you'll be getting a copy of the slide deck as well. So you can kind of go through that and recall some of the information that we were talking about. I wanted to first go over some guiding principles for our conversation tonight. So the first thing is that we respect one another's perspective, especially if it's different than our own. We want to make sure that we're creating an inclusive and supportive environment in this, because self-awareness is a very vulnerable topic and it requires kind of going deep and learning more about yourself, which can be kind of scary sometimes. Which leads me to the second point of we encourage vulnerability and safety because self-awareness and growth absolutely depend on those things. We cannot grow and we cannot achieve more if we don't feel safe and for being vulnerable. And the third thing is to kind of guide our conversation tonight is we want to remain focused and contribute to the conversation. So there's going to be different points in our event tonight where we have some breakout time. With this group, the current size that it is, there's just going to be a small conversation with just us. But as additional folks join, I will be setting up breakout rooms to kind of break that off and kind of have some of those smaller conversations. And the last thing that we want to kind of use to guide our conversation tonight is we want to recognize that the collective genius among us and make space for others to contribute. So part of this conversation is learning from other people and really kind of getting their perspective and using what they say as a springboard for us to kind of think about things a little bit differently. And I like to say this as when you're in a conversation and someone says something just the right way, that it triggers a different or a deeper thought in your brain that you wouldn't have had if it had not been for that person's perspective. So that's what I mean when I say collective genius. So we want to make sure that everyone has space to contribute and really kind of bring value to our conversation. So I want to pause there and basically check in with you all. Is there anything else that we should add to our list of guiding principles for this evening?
All good.
Okay. So I do want to go through the poly now as kind of serving as an icebreaker for us. So the first question was, if there was an Olympics for everyday activities, what activity would you have a good chance at winning a medal in? Does anyone want to share their response before I kind of read some of them out?
I say cooking.
Cooking. Are you a big cooking fan, Hope?
Not baking, but real cooking.
Real cooking. Okay.
Yeah,
What is your favorite dish to make?
jollof rice.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
Spicy too.
I'm sure it is. I can handle some spice, not a lot of it though.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I see that someone put attending Zoom meetings. I think that we can all resonate with that as well. I think that we all spend a lot of our time on Zoom meetings. Greg, you said always looking at the glass half full and striving to put a positive face on, even when things aren't looking as good. That's a good answer. I like that, Greg.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. The second question, if you had to teach a class on one thing, what would you teach? We had Hope, you said the power of your purpose. I think that is definitely a good one for you. Greg, you said that it is important to listen to others and respect their thoughts, even if they do not align with your thoughts or ideas, which is great because that goes back to our first guiding principle. We should respect one another's perspective, especially if it's different than our own. And then Jeremy, you said empathy. Why could you be equipped to teach a class on empathy?
Yeah, I think the more I learn about leadership, the more it comes down to that one thing, right? Leading with empathy. How do I connect with people that, and going to the guiding principles, how do I connect with people across difference and maybe have different opinions of me? And how do I bring people together through empathy to make things happen?
Right. That's great. And then the final question, if you could write a book that was guaranteed to be a bestseller, what would you write? Anyone want to share their answer?
I believe mine was The Power of the Real You.
Knowing the real you. Yeah.
Knowing the real you. Yeah.
Yes. So why is that something that you would be a bestseller and equipped to write in, Hope?
Because it will help people really pay attention to who they are. Individuals, because we're also unique.
We are.
We're unique and we're special.
Yeah, that's great. Jeremy, you put learning to love yourself. Would you like to give some detail around that?
Yeah, sure. I think if I had time in the typing, I was trying to submit it quickly, I would have put colon even the ugly parts. Because I think as and it kind of ties into what Hope was saying, like as you get to know yourself and practice self-awareness, you learn some things that aren't always appealing about who you are and how you show up in ways. So recognizing and honoring every piece of who you are is an important aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Greg, you mentioned living in a world with ADHD, which to Jeremy's point, I think that is a really good kind of thing to own and to can be willing to talk about. Would you want to give any further clarity on that?
It would be living through each part of each day with living with, don't know the best way to explain it, but living with hyperactivity and the different things and just, understanding yourself is the key.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you all for sharing that. And I chose these questions very intentionally, surprised, because I feel like these questions, although they were kind of silly in a way, I think they get back to the point of really kind of knowing ourselves and being self-aware as the things that we're good at, the things that we would be really good to teach, and the things that we, although it's kind of silly, what are the things that you would win an Olympic medal for? Because that you do those things well and that you execute well in that way. So while that's not the full definition of self-awareness, we'll talk about that in just a minute. I think this gets back to kind of the guiding principles that we're looking for, and also kind of dabbles a little bit in the topic of self-awareness. So I wanted to give the big picture overview, and I love this image here because of the satellite image or the plane image of the zoomed out view. of what we'll be talking about tonight. So first, we're going to talk about, why self-awareness matters. Then we're going to move into the benefits of self-awareness, both personal and interpersonal benefits, some practical ways to become more self-aware. We'll cover the challenges of self-awareness, and then we'll kind of wrap up with a conclusion and also some key takeaways for us as a group and then also individually. So let's kind of talk about high level so we can all be on the same page as what we mean by self-awareness. So the dictionary obviously is great for defining words, and the dictionary defines self-awareness as a conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. And simply put, self-awareness is understanding more about who you truly are. Self-awareness is, just like Hope said earlier, who you are uniquely, why you are wired the way that you are, and how you can use that to bring your best self to the table and for others around you as well. Self-awareness is not a couple of things, and I want to be clear on all of these, but especially a few of them. So self-awareness is not knowing your preferences or your favorites. So I know that my favorite candy is Swedish fish, but that's not really self-awareness. That's just a preference that I have. I also know that I don't like going on long road trips because I get really tired doing that. That is not self-awareness. So self-awareness is not really knowing your favorites or kind of any sort of superlative about yourself. Self-awareness is also not blaming others. In self-awareness, we own who we are. So when you blame others, then you are kind of really contributing to some unhealthy behavior and some unhealthy habits. If I were to blame someone else, say in a scenario of, do you know why you get so angry? If my response to that would be, because you keep messing up, that is not self-awareness. That's just blaming someone else and not taking accountability for our own actions. Self-awareness is not an excuse or a weapon. So when we become more self-aware, we kind of have the tendency to say, oh, I don't want to do that thing, or I don't want to push that boundary because I know X, Y, Z about myself. Self-awareness is not an excuse. Self-awareness should inform the decisions that we make so that we can better ourselves and the people around us. But self-awareness is not an excuse to kind of not do something that's expected of us, or it's not a weapon to use against someone else or to hold over someone else's head. And finally, and this might be the most important one of all, self-awareness is not an achievable state of being or the magic bullet in any way. Self-awareness is not something that you can just achieve over time and kind of reach this place of Zen. It is a very iterative process. You find out more, you refine what you know. So self-awareness is something that we just kind of have to invest in over the course of our lifetime. Would you all add anything else to this list? Okay, I would say it's pretty comprehensive then. So again, because we don't have a high number of people on the call, we are just going to kind of talk about this amongst ourselves. But I think this is really important for us to cover. So we're going to take the next 10 to 12 minutes or so to kind of talk through some of these things. And then we will move on to the benefits of becoming more self-aware. So does anyone want to take some time to introduce themselves to get us started?
I'll go first.
Thank you, Hope.
Let's see. Introduce yourself. What is your why for being here? Why do you think self-awareness is important? You want us to address those questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I am Dr. Hope Udamban. I'm the CEO and founder of Dr. Hope Solutions, where we work with professionals and executives to overcome fear, gain confidence to execute their goals. And what is my why for being here? I'm here to learn more about self-awareness because there's always opportunities to learn, and also to support Eric. And you're doing fabulous. So great insights. I'm already learning already. And why do I think self-awareness is so important? We need it. We need to be self-aware. If we are to be successful in whatever we do, we need to be self-aware. So thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Hope. Greg, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. My name's Greg Rogers. I'm a friend of Eric's, and I work for an IT integration company. So being self-aware is definitely very important in what I do every day. My why for being here is to support Eric, like Hope said, but also to have a better understanding of what self-awareness is and how it applies to everyday situations. And I also think it's very important because it allows you to kind of read the room and understand, and also really truly understand yourself as well.
Thanks, Greg. Jeremy, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I'm Jeremy May. I am an executive coach, working currently as an internal coach for my company. And one of the reasons I'm here is to just gain additional insights on this topic. One of my philosophies, and this kind of goes into the third question of why is it important, is as a leader, who you are is how you lead. So really diving into understanding who you are as a person helps you shape your leadership. And if there are additional tools or practical applications to self-awareness, I'm always up for learning those.
Great. And then Amy, I know that you are driving. So if you have the capacity, would you mind chiming in? She may not. Oh, there she is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're a little choppy, but we can still hear you.
Hello. I'm driving in the.
Okay. Well, that's fine. We can move on. You were a little choppy and kind of breaking up there. So we will get your input a little bit later. All right. So thank you all for sharing that. I introduced myself. I'm Eric, and I am just really excited to kind of talk to you all today. I know all of you on the call, and I just want to say that I appreciate your support. I appreciate you taking the time to invest in me and what I'm doing. And my why for being here is because I really want to help others, including the people that I already know, find out more about self-awareness. I went on a self-awareness journey a couple of years ago, and I haven't looked back since. I found out a lot about myself that really helped inform my decision making. It really helped me understand myself more, and it really allowed me to be free and to just live in the world without having to put a mask on or really kind of conform to what other people were expecting of me, because I was able to find peace and joy in the fact of I knew who I was, and I knew who I didn't have to be. I didn't have to show up in a certain way. So I am here to kind of share that with you all, share my personal experiences, and also kind of inspire others to go on this journey of self-awareness and see what that could mean for them. Why do I think self-awareness is so important? Well, we're about to find out. So again, I think that this is going to be a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to it throughout our evening and our time together today. So the biggest factor or the biggest benefit that I think self-awareness brings is increased emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, or EI or EQ for short, is the ability to recognize emotions in oneself and in others, and to use that information to inform thinking and behavior. So when I'm emotionally intelligent, I can recognize when I'm feeling certain emotions. And I can recognize, maybe even more importantly, what causes me to feel those feelings and what I should do in response to those feelings. So that's the part of using that information to inform thinking and behavior. So actually, I just found out recently that when I feel stressed and when I feel like I'm overwhelmed, or if I had a bad day and I have a lot going on in my brain, I need to sweat. I need to run. I need to go to the gym. I need to do something to sweat out my kind of anxiety and my stress. And I would consider that to be emotionally intelligent, because I know that if I don't do that, then I'm bringing work home with me, or I'm bringing personal stuff with me to work. And that is not the proper environment for that. I obviously want to bring my whole self to my job, and I want to be accepted, and I want to feel like I belong there. But at the same time, if that's hindering me from achieving the results that I know that I need to achieve, then that's holding me back. So that is a really small example of emotional intelligence, but I think that it's a really good example of being more emotionally intelligent. So talking about that, emotional intelligence looks like active listening before speaking, navigating conflict in a calm way, and expressing your honest feelings. So navigating conflict in a calm way is one that a lot of people struggle with. If they are confronted with some feedback that they may not agree with, or if they are approached in a way that might be abrasive by someone else, their guard goes up and they're ready to take the gloves off and, kind of go at it with them. But navigating conflict in a calm way is emotionally intelligent behavior. You understand what is happening, you can recognize it, and you can very actively tell your body to calm down, to take a step back, and to approach it with a level head. Would you all have anything else to add to the what does emotional intelligence look like kind of description? Okay, pretty comprehensive then. And then how does self-awareness help? So again, all of this is about self-awareness. By increasing self-awareness of your own emotions, we can more easily recognize and understand the emotions of others, which leads to empathy and authentic and effective communication. So self-awareness helps and kind of compounds those really kind of good communication behaviors, which we'll talk about again in just a second. So let's talk about decision-making and how self-awareness can really play a part in decision-making and kind of the decision-making process. So we make 1,000 or more decisions every day based on whether we're going to hit the snooze button when we wake up to whether we're going to stay on social media too late, right before bed at night. Those are all decisions: what we're going to eat, what we're going to wear, how we're going to interact with other people. And this is a very simple and very basic kind of 5-step way to make decisions. And we're going to talk through each step and what that means for kind of self-awareness in that journey. So we are going to use kind of a bigger decision as our example decision in this. And that decision is going to be whether or not to go back to school. And I know some people on this call have made this decision for themselves, so I think that it's a pretty relevant one. But if you haven't, then we're going to talk about it, and you can kind of see how these decision-making skills and self-awareness could really help in this decision-making process. So the first step would be defining the decision. So this clearly states at this step what the decision is and the criteria that should be used to make that decision. And again, we all make decisions every single day. And we don't necessarily go through the nuance of, oh, what criteria should we use to make this decision? Our brains just go on autopilot, and sometimes we just make them. But where self-awareness really helps is the habit of thinking outside of the box allows you to understand more details that are relevant to this decision. So in our example decision, going back to school, if someone who is not self-aware would be making this decision, they may just say, oh, it's only a matter of a couple things, like how much does it cost and does it help me in my career? Those are very valid factors in that decision, but there are other things to consider too. And thinking outside the box using self-awareness would help you kind of understand more of those nuanced criteria when making this decision. A more nuanced criteria would be, how much time is it going to take for you to do the work that is needed to go back to school? Are you going to need to take out student loans, or are you going to pay for this out of your own pocket? Are you going to have someone help you with a repayment? A lot of employers kind of give you a stipend when you go back to school to kind of help further your development and ease the financial burden of going back to school. Another nuanced kind of decision. Another thing is, how is it going to affect your family? That's a really big question. Is it going to take away time that you would normally spend with the people that you love? So those are just some of the other things to consider at this define the decision phase. And you don't have to make all those decisions and understand them right away, but those are criteria that you should use when making that decision. The second part is gathering information. So when we gather information, we collect relevant data and consider the perspectives of different stakeholders. So this is the part where we get input from other people. But getting input from other people can only really happen when we first have decided for ourselves that we don't have all the answers. We have realized that we may not be an expert in that space or fully equipped to make that decision on our own. That's when self-awareness really matters in our decision making. So back to our example decision of going back to school, we could collect data from the people closest to us to kind of talk through some of those criteria that we used. So if you are in a relationship and you all share a budget and you share finances, knowing how much school costs is very relevant to both of you, and you should have a conversation about that. You should also have a conversation with your family because it's going to affect what you do with them and the time that is spent with them, both during school time and also after school time as well. And other things, maybe you should talk to your employer, get their opinion. Is that degree really going to be relevant for the career path that you want to take? So these are all kind of different feedback perspectives that we really need to understand. And we also need to be okay when people tell us, I don't know if that's the right decision for you. Being self-aware and having emotional intelligence allows us to have conversations that may be a little prickly sometimes. The third step would be consider alternatives. Generate and weigh options to meet the decision criteria. So this is kind of a balancing game, two sides of a coin or multiple sides of a die. Which side is the best? What result is the best for me and also the people involved? And self-awareness allows you to be more informed about what path would be the best for the authentic you. So this means knowing yourself and knowing how a certain decision will affect you in the long run. So if you know that that your decision to go back to school will require 5 to 10 hours per week, to do schoolwork, to write papers, or something in the like, and you don't have that capacity because you work 60 hours a week, I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the best decision for you. You know your schedule, you know how you're aligned. And if you make that decision without considering that, then you're going to be hard pressed and you're going to have some other difficult decisions to make in the long run. So again, that self-awareness fact would allow you to make the best decision that aligns with who you are authentically. Step 4, make the decision. Pretty easy. This is kind of where you take that step to actually say, okay, I'm making this decision that is best for me based on what I know and what I've done, the analysis. So awareness around your decision-making style can help you create guardrails for yourself when making the decision. This is an often overlooked part of kind of the decision-making process, is actually what it takes to make the decision. And I know that I struggle with this sometimes myself too. So I gave an example here. If you know that you tend to draw decision-making out for longer periods of time, being self-aware and creating a guardrail for yourself to give yourself 12 or 24 hours to make the decision, that is a good thing to know. Other things that I've heard people doing are making sure that you don't make a big decision in one day, that you sleep on it. That's a really common one. Or you sleep on it and you talk to a trusted friend or a significant other. Those are kind of really good guardrails for yourself. And if you are self-aware and you know how you make decisions, then that's going to help you in the long run. So again, for our decision about going back to school, if you know that if you have a tendency to draw out that decision, and you also know that the fall semester is coming up and you need to kind of register for classes, give yourself 3 to 4 days to kind of really mull through the options, figure out which one is best for you, and then make that decision. Set an artificial deadline for yourself because you know that it could take longer if you don't do that. And then finally, the last step, again, people forget about this one, is evaluating the decision. How did this decision land for you? What did you do? And did it actually suit you? And was that good for you? So you assess the outcome of the decision and you learn from it for future decisions. And self-awareness really matters in this space because you want to make sure that the decisions you're making line up with who you are at your core. So if you make a decision and it just doesn't sit right or it didn't turn out, you need to figure out, well, why was that the case? Did it not turn out because maybe it didn't work for me, or did it not turn out because it went against the preferences of other people? Those are two different things. If it meshed well with you and who you were, then that might be a good decision to kind of keep making, or to use that decision to influence future decisions. I want to take a pause there and see if any of you have any other input to add to the decision-making process and why that would be valuable.
I like all of the tips, all of the steps that you have highlighted. And to the 4th step before this one, the slide before this, I would also add accountability is so important, because if you have followed all the steps that you have done, you feel good about the decision you're about to make, but fear creeps in, because when fear comes in, then it leads to procrastination. So having accountability really helps in ensuring that you are moving forward with the decision you had agreed upon.
Yeah, that's really valuable. Thank you, Hope, for adding that in. All right, we're going to go to the next benefit of self-awareness, which is the relational benefits. So we have a couple things here to cover that I kind of bucketed under relational benefits. So the first one being authentic communication. And we talked about that a little bit before. And by being self-aware of our own emotional triggers and communication styles, it's easier to communicate authentically and build meaningful relationships with other people. So when we know why we are self-aware and the things that make us who we are able to be vulnerable and bring those into our interpersonal relationships to kind of have that authentic communication. So I know that I respond a certain way to external events that might affect me or might affect my family. And you know what? My wife knows how I respond too, which means that she is able to check in with me to make sure I'm okay in that scenario. She is able to say, hey, I know this might have upset you or rattled you. I want to check in and make sure that you're okay. And I can be vulnerable enough with her to say yes or no, I might need a minute or something along those lines because I'm more self-aware. The second thing is increased empathy. So greater self-awareness leads to increased empathy and understanding of others because we are able to accept the perspectives and experiences of other people. So we are able to kind of put ourselves in other people's shoes more when we are more self-aware. And Greg hit on this earlier when he talked about kind of understanding different perspectives, if it's different than our own. And we're able to kind of, and Jeremy also with his kind of book on empathy that he mentioned, but we are able to really understand the perspectives of others and kind of have that empathetic communication when we're self-aware, because we just know people are just deeper than whatever we see on the surface. I just want to pause there and say hello to Juan. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate you being here.
Hello there. Hello there.
And the last relational benefit is healthy boundaries. So with self-awareness, we can establish and maintain boundaries with other people, which are really valuable in order for us to have a healthier self and healthier interpersonal relationships. When we have blurred boundaries and we make decisions and we take actions that may kind of go against who we are and may kind of creep in to kind of have too much accountability for us, not enough accountability for others, or just other kind of boundaried, blurred lines, then we can kind of become more stressed. We can become overwhelmed in that, and that deteriorates from who we are and the relationship that we have with ourselves and with other people. So having self-awareness does really help with having healthy boundaries with ourselves and with others. We have some health benefits of self-awareness. We have mind-body connection. So when we're more self-aware, we can better understand the impact of our actions on our physical and emotional well-being and make healthier choices. So this goes back to my point I said a couple minutes ago, where I know that if I'm stressed or if I'm overwhelmed, I need to sweat it out. I need to do something to move my body in a way that I get out that negative energy. And I take physical accountability for doing that. And I know that that is connected to my emotional well-being. Stress reduction. When we are self-aware, we can be so much less stressed because we have better stress management skills, which can result in improved physical health and a reduction in stress-related illnesses. This kind of intertwines with a lot of the other benefits that we've talked about so far: the mind-body connection, the healthy boundaries, the authentic communication. When we don't know how to navigate those spaces in a healthy way, then we automatically amplify our stress level, which can really just compound everything else and leave us in a bad spot. But self-awareness about who we are and the relationships that we have with other people, how we respond, and the way that we just show up for ourselves and others can allow us to reduce the stress because everything else just works out a little bit better. And then finally, positive self-talk. Through greater self-awareness, we can change that negative self-talk and the limiting beliefs that have a negative impact on our physical and also mental health. So I can fall into that trap where I have bad self-talk and negative self-talk, and that can really limit me and what I can do. It means that I don't show up well to certain spaces. It can mean that I hold myself back from making decisions that might benefit me, my family, or other people. And when I have positive self-talk and I can kind of rewrite that script and I can go back to what I know is true about myself, then I can empower myself into a better future. And that overall impacts my physical health and my mental well-being as well. So I wanted to pause there. I know we just went through a couple additional slides for relational benefits and also health benefits. Does anyone have anything else to add to those that maybe we missed?
I'll add something out here. As we thinking about the relational benefits, one of the things that I've learned from a self-awareness perspective is when it comes to thinking about how others might respond or my interaction with others, I always have to recognize that even when I'm considering their perspective, it's still through my lens. And the more that I have awareness around that, it gives me the ability to recognize their approach to this may be outside of my scope of understanding. So they may be operating from a whole different model as to why they're making this decision. And that allows me to go, okay, it's not about me in this moment. It's about that other person and what's important to them. And I have to have empathy and understanding in that space.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good perspective about having that kind of your own lens in that, even if you are considering how other people think and behave in that. Greg, do you have anything else to add for us? Maybe, maybe not. That's okay. Anything else from anyone before we move on? Okay. So we're actually going to talk for a couple minutes here. Because of the size of our group, like I said, we're just going to stick to this main core group, but take a couple minutes to talk about what benefits of self-awareness resonated with you the most, and what are some other benefits that we didn't mention, and why are they important? So one of the things that I wanted to mention here is this, the benefits of self-awareness took a very personal approach to this. We didn't even begin to cover the benefits of kind of how we show up in our different spaces, like for our work teams and for our families. We talked a little bit about the communication aspect and just showing up better holistically, but there's also some really great benefits for teams as well. So I wanted to put that out there, and don't have enough time to cover that today, but that is definitely one of the benefits of self-awareness, is that we show up better in other places and in other capacities. So Juan, I know you kind of came in a little bit late, but I think you caught the tail end of the relational and also the health benefits. Do you have any benefits of self-awareness that you're aware of, or anything that kind of resonated with you?
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind.
Not only the peace of mind, but the ability to be able to sleep at night. One of the things that I love about my Apple Watch is it tells me, how was your sleep? Was it continuous? Was it broken? And when I don't have peace of mind, I don't get good sleep.
That's a good insight. Yes, peace of mind. I think that also goes hand in hand with the stress reduction. If we can kind of have those good boundaries and we have that reduced stress, then I think we're more apt to have peace of mind about, whatever we're doing. Hope, I wanted to go back and ask you, because you are a confidence coach. I wanted to ask you how you see positive self-talk under this slide here, and then also kind of the healthy boundaries really kind of weave into the work that you do. I wanted to see if you have any additional insight to add for us there.
Thank you, Eric. So something that I would add to that will be really knowing your why, because that self-awareness, it's really knowing who we are, who I am as a person. You know, like mine just said, peace of mind. If you have peace of mind, you're going to be able to sleep well. If you know what it is that's blocking your ability to think clearly, with self-awareness, there's no more confusion. You're not overwhelmed with all of the chatters, but you have clarity. But it really goes back to one being willing to really know their purpose, and knowing and being able to regulate, back to that emotional intelligence, being able to regulate when those negative thoughts come, because they're going to come. They're having the ability to overcome those thoughts by being positive. Maybe you're trying to do a new project, to say, yep, you've done this before, it did not work out. You reframe that thinking, you know, by saying, you know what, I'm a winner. Yes, it did not work out last time. It's going to work out this time because I have the process in place. I have accountability in place. I have resources in place. I believe I can do this because I have a why. I know the why behind that project. So this is really good. This is powerful stuff, Eric.
Thank you. Yeah, the why is so important, because without it, I mean, I think of the why as kind of the guiding light. If we don't have that, then we don't know the direction we're going. We can kind of take some steps, but in the end, we might kind of get turned around. We might start drifting off into a different direction. So that why kind of centers us and grounds us and guides us to where we know that we need to go. And being self-aware is a really big part of that. Thank you, Hope, for kind of stepping in and answering that.
Something else I wanted to add right quick, Eric, about another benefit that was just resonated with me when you were talking or presenting is expectations. When we are self-aware, we manage our expectations, the expectations we have of other people. And back to Jeremy's point with empathy, we're able to meet people right where they're at because we're empathetic. We have empathy for them. Instead of having these high expectations and we get disappointed, but being self-aware, just meeting them right where they're at and not judging them for the decisions they're making, but trying to understand where they're coming from. So just wanted to add.
No, that's really powerful too. And I think that kind of weaves in with a lot of the different things that we talked about. Having proper expectations is having proper boundaries with other people too. If our expectations are over the top, then that means that there's something going on with our boundaries there, and we need to take a look at that. But if we have kind of level set boundary or level set expectations, because we know and we can kind of empathize and we kind of really have that authentic and that vulnerable relationship with them, then that just kind of boosts our willingness to be self-aware. And it also just helps our authentic communication and so many other things as well. So I think that's a really good point. Thank you, Hope, for kind of pointing that out too. See, I love this. This goes back to the collective genius. Just like Hope said, I said something and triggered a thought in her brain, and I think this is really great. So we did the breakout groups, so thank you all for kind of talking through that. And then practical ways to become more self-aware. So we have 6 ways here, and we mentioned some of these throughout our conversation, but I really wanted to kind of hone in on them because, again, one of the big purposes of this webinar is to allow people to walk away with some things that they can do right now to increase self-awareness and have all of the benefits that we just talked about. So the first thing is meditation. So meditation or prayer, as I had it on the previous slide, is really helpful in grounding our thoughts. Sitting in silence, focusing on the breath, it helps us to just understand the thoughts that are coming into our brain more, and also gives us the space to wonder, I wonder why we're kind of thinking about that, or I wonder what triggered that, or maybe I should kind of think about that a little bit more when I'm in a healthier space. And we can learn to manage our intrusive thoughts. So this goes back to that negative self-talk. We can learn to kind of capture that and reframe it when we have this habit of meditation or prayer. If you believe in a higher being and you are connected to that being, then you should tap into that. You should have a nurturing relationship. That was so crucial for me when I was on my self-awareness journey, was leaning into my relationship with God. And it was really great for me because it really gave me some good perspective and kind of kept me grounded in that. And I was able to really kind of take that stress that I was feeling or take the negative talk and kind of do something with it in a really healthy way. So the second thing on this slide would be journaling. And I want to give a quick shout out here to Juan, who is on the call. And I had known the power of journaling for years. But recently I sat down with Juan and we had a conversation, and he asked me, he was like, have you been journaling? And I was like, no, but I know that I need to do that. And from that point forward, I have been journaling every morning and even sometimes throughout the day to kind of really get my thoughts out. And man, can I just tell you, it has been so helpful for me. It has helped me to level set my day. It has helped me to put kind of my intentions out for the day, my gratitude for the day. And it's been really helpful for me to, again, level set on that and to start the day in a really, really healthy way. So journaling also allows me to just see my thoughts written down and to kind of process them in a different way. So, I process things in a very kinesthetic way, so I have to do it. So journaling really helps with that, where I get to write it down and it goes from my brain to the paper and I can see it and I can think about it in a different way. Communication. So we have seeking feedback and group conversations. So asking trusted friends, families, and colleagues of diverse backgrounds for constructive feedback can help us to really get some insights into the areas that we might have as development and also what we do really, really well. So this is, asking people who are close to us for their opinions and being okay with the feedback that they give us. We talked about this a little bit in the decision-making part of kind of the benefits of self-awareness, where we're kind of asking the perspectives of other people, but really kind of this is intentionally focusing on, what do I do really well and what should I lean into? And then also on the flip side of that, for someone who's interacted with you for a long time, or they interact with you in different spaces, you could ask them, hey, how do I show up well at work? Or how do I show up well in our family or in our friend circle? And being okay with the honest feedback that they give you is really, really good. And it helps to boost that self-awareness even more. Group conversations. So group conversations, sitting down with a wider group of people that have come from different backgrounds and different perspectives and who see the world in a different way, we can start to understand their worldview more, which helps to shape what we believe and kind of really grow that empathy, seeing things through the lens of someone else, and just really kind of broadening our perspective. And then kind of, I categorize these as expertise. So we have diverse content and personality assessments. So reading, listening, and reflecting on work from people that aren't like you and content creators can help to gain new insights and develop a broader worldview. Again, this is taking the group conversation model and just really expanding it out to the entire world. So this would be reading books by authors and in genres that may not be right up your alley, but they might have something to add for you. Or listening to a podcast about something that you may know a little bit about, but maybe you want to learn more. Or maybe listening to a podcast or watching a TV show about something that that you don't believe in, but you just want to know why. There are certain people who might believe in that, or who might think that way or might really have that part as their identity. So when we do that, we kind of, again, expand out our worldview, and it allows us to empathize with others on a deeper level. And finally, personality assessments. I love personality assessments. And again, this was one of the big keys to my self-awareness. Personality assessments are really, really good. I think they're very helpful. They help frame up who you are in a unique way. But again, they can't be weaponized, or they can't be an excuse for how you kind of operate. I can't say, oh, well, I'm a XYZ, so I'm not going to do that thing because, oh, that's not my personality type. And you really can't use it to kind of influence how you see other people either, although it's really kind of easy to kind of fall into that trap. But personality assessments can provide insights into who we are and to help us understand how we process information and interact with the world. So for me, I know that I'm an Enneagram 9. And if you're familiar with the Enneagram, or even if you're not, that means that I tend to avoid conflict. And I tend to avoid it in kind of more ways than other people do. And I know that I'm a peacemaker because I want to make sure everyone is good. I don't want to make waves. And knowing that about myself and finding that out, it really puts so many different pieces of my whole life into perspective and say, oh yeah, I can see how I did that back then, or I can see how I have a tendency to do that when I interact with people at work or in my friend groups. So that was really helpful for me to learn that and to just be self-aware that I have that tendency to maybe avoid conflict maybe a little bit more than people do, in a natural way. So here are some challenges of becoming self-aware. And self-awareness is really good, but again, like I said at the beginning of our conversation tonight, self-awareness can be really, really difficult. So these are just two of the challenges, and I want to hear more from you in just a minute, but I wanted to talk about overcoming blind spots and time management. So overcoming blind spots, and I would also reclassify this as just being open to being vulnerable, is a really big hindrance to kind of deepening our self-awareness. Sometimes we don't want to think that we aren't perfect people. Sometimes we don't want to think that we don't have it all together. And that can be limiting if we stay in that space for too long. We need the confidence. We need to have a positive understanding of our own strengths, which is very true. But at the same time, we can't think that we are better than ourselves, and we can't think that we're better than everybody else. So self-awareness, one of the biggest challenges is overcoming those blind spots and even just being vulnerable to even see them in the first place. And then the time management piece, self-awareness, it takes time and it takes an investment. I know now that I need to dedicate 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour, depending on the morning, to journaling. And that also means that I need to wake up earlier so I can get my day started earlier, so I can do the things that kind of help me and kind of really set me up to be successful during the day. So time management is a really big component of self-awareness. We can't just read one book and know everything about self-awareness. Again, it's not an achievable thing. It's something that we kind of journey along our entire lives. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear some of the ways to become more self-aware that we may not have talked about, or some of the associated challenges that we didn't discuss. Greg, did you have anything that you wanted to add, or any of your experiences that you've had with self-awareness?
Yeah, excuse me. I'm sorry. Yes, I did. I wanted to save the time management piece. I thought was very good. One of the challenges I have is time management, so I have to daily, partition my day out so that I'm able to meet those expectations that I set for myself. But I think it was really good to see that in the sense that with time management, I have to take time throughout my day to even pause and just digest what the day's progressed. And sometimes I'll do it in the morning, which I think is a great time of day to do it. But sometimes I'll do it throughout the day. Just take some time just to pause and meditate and just understand that I can't do everything in one day, and that it's okay if it takes a day or two to get to the end goal that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Journaling.
Yeah, I'll add.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Juan.
Oh, thank you. Journaling, something that you and I talked about when we met several weeks ago, how journaling just helps us think through things. Was it a good day? Celebrate that. Was it a bad day? Write about it and see how you can make that day a little bit better. I don't know, you and I jokingly said that while you're journaling, you can take out your frustrations without a warrant being delivered. And sometimes, no matter how good or positive we try to be, life is going to get in the way. You're going to have a difficult day. You're going to have a difficult interaction with an employee. And for me, journaling, it just helps me think it through. What happened? How did it happen? And how do I answer that question? What does better look like the next time this happens? Mm-hmm. And journaling does that for me.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Juan.
Yes, I'll just add one thing that's helped me is recognizing the unpleasantness of self-awareness. And what I mean by that is when you start really taking a deep look at yourself, it's not fun, it's not comfortable. And being able to hold yourself up to that and not justify your own actions, because there's a real tendency when I'm faced with a behavior that I didn't like about myself, I go, oh, well, I did that because of X, or I did that because of Y. And what's helped me work through that is getting back to, I own my own triggers, right? No matter what's going on, at the end of the day, I get to choose how I respond in any given situation. I think it was Viktor Frankl who has the quote, in between stimulus and response is space. And in that space is your power to choose. And in that choice is your growth and your freedom. And that's really resonated me with the self-awareness where I get to choose how I respond, no matter what the external factor is. I have that choice. And through self-awareness, I can then create that space to choose differently and behave in a different way. And that's onus is on me. It's not on anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really powerful. Thanks for sharing, Jeremy. I love that quote, by the way.
Jeremy, you should put that in the chat, that quote.
Yes, please.
Like it, please share it. So for me personally, I definitely agree with the points Jeremy made, as well as Greg, and definitely Glenn with the journaling. So, but I'm going to focus more on the time management piece. So that time management piece is, I know me, for example, if I've had a long day and I know that there are some things I still need to do, I know that if I climb the bed, we're done. We are done. So my accountability, I tell my husband, I say, honey, I still have tasks to do tonight. All I need is just 1 hour. Mm-hmm. If it's past 1 hour, I'm still on this bed, tell me to get up.
Yep.
So
knowing yourself.
That's my accountability. I give him specifics on things I want him to remind me that I said I would do. That way, when self rises up, they say, you can do it tomorrow. Oh, you can wake up early. I remember that this is not about waking up early, that this is about doing it tonight. So I tell him, my husband, I say, honey, and these are the specifics. Help me get up in an hour. Mm-hmm. And 1 hour comes, he says, honey, it's time. You said you were going to do this. So that's my accountability. That's my helper. Mm-hmm. So knowing self helps in getting past that.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and I love kind of how you put that of like, hey, I'm giving myself a time box for this. And this kind of goes back to what we talked about at the beginning around that decision-making ability. So if you want to say, hey, I know that if I sit here and I do these tasks, it might take me 2 or 3 hours, but I'm giving myself the boundary and the decision-making ability to only have 1 hour, because I know that kind of, on that bell curve, past the hour 15 or hour 30, it's no good. It's no good. I would rather, be in the bed and kind of wind down, and my time would be better spent, kind of doing that and taking that self-care and that much needed rest that we all need. So that's the other thing about kind of self-awareness is, in one sense, it can kind of be addictive. And once you know more about yourself, you want to keep knowing more. You want to kind of keep diving in. But there's also that time balance and just also that self-care aspect of, you can't go full on all the time in order to have good boundaries with yourself. So I think that was all really great insights. Amy, I know that you were driving before, but I wanted to just give you space in case you had the ability to unmute and kind of give us any insights. If not, that is totally fine. But I want to just recognize that you are still here and you are a part of this conversation. So thank you for being here. All right, so we are going to kind of move into our kind of final part of our evening together. We have just under 20 minutes left. And I wanted to kind of really have some key takeaways and, the conclusion here for us. So self-awareness, like we've talked about, it takes effort, it takes time, and it takes kind of a willingness on our part in order to invest in ourselves. So developing self-awareness, it does take the time, but the benefits are worth it. We highlighted all the benefits kind of at the front end of this, and they are really good and they are really helpful. But we must begin in small ways, because over time, those small steps compound into something much bigger. So as you begin to learn more about yourself, you can then leverage that thing in your conversations, in your interactions with others. Juan made a really good point about journaling, kind of what can I do better the next time in order for this decision or this kind of situation to turn out maybe a little bit differently, or maybe, a little bit in a more healthy way, whatever it may be. So just having that self-awareness of, hey, I need to do this the next time is really helpful. And self-reflection also is another kind of key takeaway for us tonight. Reflecting on our thoughts and behaviors and taking responsibility for our own development is critical for growth. Self-awareness is an iterative process. Again, small steps compounded over time. It is not a one-time achievement. I don't want anyone to get lost in the fact of like, oh, I finally achieved self-awareness, like it's some Zen state to be in. And that's not what we're aiming for. And I personally don't think that's really achievable. So we need to kind of own this over time so that we can continue to kind of have that iterative process, learn, use what we've learned to kind of grow even more. And then for a conclusion tonight, by actively working to become more self-aware, we can improve so many things, including our emotional intelligence, decision-making skills, health benefits, relationships, and just our overall well-being. Self-awareness compounds on itself and leads to growth and transformation over time. So now I want to take it back and push it all back out to you again. I know we just had a really good conversation about kind of, the kind of challenges and also, the ways to have self-awareness, but I wanted to see what your key takeaways were from our conversation together tonight. And what next steps are you going to take towards self-awareness?
For me, the biggest takeaway was the connection to decision making, because even as you were going through that section, I found myself going, I don't really focus on how I make decisions. I just kind of go with it. And there's a decision to be made. I make the decision and I move on. But there's benefit in slowing down and reflecting on how do I make decisions, and then doing that, reflection after the decision. Was this the best decision, instead of moving right to the next thing. And then as far as next steps for me, the journaling piece, I think is a big one for me. Like I know the benefits of it. I talk to other people about the power of it, and I just haven't done it on my own. So really trying to become intentional of doing that for myself.
Mhm.
And for me, it would be that self-awareness is a journey. There's no destination. It's a journey, and continuing to be intentional on things that are going on within and what's going on the outside, it's very important. And next steps for me, you know what? It's funny, Jeremy said journaling. I teach people, I talk to people about journaling.
Mhm.
So I just told myself, while Wen was talking, I said, okay, I'm gonna give myself 5 days. I'm gonna give it a shot. 5 days. I see it. Yes, I'm gonna get me a notebook. 5 days straight and experience that and continue on that journey. But the kicker is 5 days.
Is it my turn? I think
It
it's
is,
my turn.
yes.
Okay, so my key takeaway has been with the time management piece, and oh goodness, please forgive me. I was it Greg or Jeremy that mentioned something about no, it was you, Eric, that it does it take 3 hours? How far along would I be if I just put in 1 hour in? Because a lot of times if it does take 3 hours, I'm not doing it. But how far along would I be if I put in 1 hour for 3 days? As opposed to getting to the moment of crunch. And now I have to do it, wanting to do it or not, I got to do it. So time management is something that I struggle with. Ironically, journaling comes to me very easily. It's one of those things that I've been doing for years. There's so many books in here. I use the composition notebooks. I affectionately call it the Book of Cow. And my next step is really to step back just a little bit. And something that we teach in my classes is look in from the outside. Looking in from the outside sometimes gives us better perspective. That's what I need to do. Step back, look in from the outside.
Thanks, Juan, Jeremy, and Hope. Greg, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was very impressed about the evaluation after making the decision, and I think that that's one of the big takeaways that I took is kind of evaluating what your thoughts are after the decision. I was thinking initially before this time we had together that I would be doing that beforehand, before the decision, but I like that it's after because I think it's a good time to reflect. And my other key takeaways was time management, like Juan said. That's definitely something I need to work on. And then the empathy piece is probably one of the biggest things for my next steps is to, better understand my decision for myself, but also have empathy with others. And I think that that's an important key takeaway as well.
That's great. I'm glad that you all, have really kind of found some things to latch onto in this conversation that we had, and that you are kind of clear for the most part, on the next steps that you should, that you feel empowered to take coming out of our conversation tonight. So I think this has been a great time together. And I wanted to just give everyone kind of a brief snapshot as to what we do at Stratiform Solutions and what I do as kind of the owner and operator there. And I wanted to kind of just talk to you a little bit more about the services that we have. And self-awareness and growth and transformation is a key facet of everything that we do. And you can see here on this list, workshops and webinars to move to a more ideal future. And I think that's what we all really want. How can we show up the best for ourselves and others in the future? So like I said at the beginning, workshops and webinars is something that I do. One-on-one coaching focused on growth and self-transformation. Group and team coaching to elevate groups of people to be their best. Kind of taking this growth and transformation mindset and putting it out there and saying, how do teams and how do groups of people who are focused on the same thing, how do they become their best selves? and then also speaking engagements to inspire and to challenge others. And if you are interested in one-on-one coaching, you do get a 10% discount for kind of attending our webinar today and spending time together this evening learning about self-awareness. You can connect with us online at stratiform.solutions is our website. And we are also on LinkedIn and Facebook under Stratiform Solutions. And the QR code there that you see on the screen is my digital business card. So feel free to scan that and feel free to save that as a contact in your phone. You do have to scroll down to the bottom to do add to contact list in order to save that. And that has all of my relevant information. That has my business LinkedIn. It has my personal LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on there, the Facebook page, the website. Anything that you need related to Stratiform Solutions is on that digital business card. And I wanted to just take some time to also let you know, if you are interested in connecting with others, if you're not already connected with them on any kind of social platforms, feel free to post a link to your profile in the chat. I'm actually going to take just 30 seconds here to post the links that I mentioned for Stratiform Solutions in case you are interested in following them and learning more about the content that we have to offer. And the moment that we have all been waiting for, who is the winner and the recipient of the 2 free coaching sessions? Thank you all for attending. I don't know if can you see this screen? Can you see the picker wheel? I don't think that you can. Yes, no.
Nope.
Okay, let me stop sharing because this is a fun little animation. So I want to make sure that everyone shares in our joy together. Here we go. That should be better, right? Is that better? Can you see the?
I can see that now.
Okay, perfect. All right, so everyone's name is in here and we're going to spin it and it's going to do a cool little animation for us. Just over the line. Great. Hooray. Greg, you have won 2 free coaching sessions with me.
Yay!
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, of course. So I will reach out to you and we can kind of talk through the logistics of that. And I'm excited to talk to you more about what self-awareness means, some of the takeaways that you had from our time together today, and kind of how you can leverage self-awareness in the future. Anyone have any other closing thoughts or anything else? Any questions?
It was fantastic.
It was awesome. I definitely wanted to attend one again soon.
Yes, I will make sure that I let everyone know. Just look for it on social media. I think I'm going to go with a 6-week cadence. Every 6 weeks, we'll have a different webinar about a different topic. So I would love to see you all back. Again, I appreciate the support that you all have given me through this webinar. And I'm really glad that you've all found it to be so helpful and inspiring.